Stay Hungry 1976 is a fascinating blend of comedy and drama that explores the world of bodybuilding and the relationships within it. Directed by Bob Rafelson, this film marks a significant moment in Arnold Schwarzenegger's early career as he plays Joe Santo, a charismatic yet complex bodybuilder. It's not just about lifting weights, it's about the characters' lives outside of the gym, and it offers a surprising depth in exploring how Arnold's character fits within the larger narrative. The movie is set around a gym called the Panhandle, which is threatened with demolition to make way for new development. Jeff Bridges plays the main character, a young man named Craig Blake, who's tasked with buying the gym as part of his role working for a wealthy developer. As he spends more time at the gym, Blake gets drawn into the lives of the eccentric gym-goers, including Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, Joe Santo. Arnold's portrayal of Joe Santo is an interesting one. He's not just the typical muscle-bound bodybuilder, but a man grappling with his own vulnerabilities. In the film, he's portrayed as a larger-than-life figure who also has a kind of fragile internal life. His relationships with other characters, particularly with Blake and the character played by Sally Field, create a multifaceted role for Arnold, far different from his later action-heavy films like The Terminator or Predator. It's a chance to see a side of Arnold that doesn't just rely on his physical presence, but explores deeper emotional layers. The film also gives us a glimpse into Arnold's early career, which is particularly significant given how Stay Hungry was released before he became a household name in Hollywood. At this time, Arnold was known primarily as a bodybuilder, having won the Mr. Olympia title multiple times. His transition into acting was still in its infancy, and Stay Hungry was a role that allowed him to show his range as an actor, something beyond just flexing muscles. Interestingly, Arnold was required to lose weight for the role, as the filmmakers wanted him to look leaner and more in line with the physique of his character, who wasn't just a giant muscle man, but someone who lived an everyday life while still maintaining his fitness. After filming, Arnold would eventually regain the weight as he continued his bodybuilding career. His appearance in the film is a unique moment in his life, as he was still solidifying his identity outside of the bodybuilding world. The movie's plot takes the audience through some comedic moments as well as serious drama, with the gym serving as the perfect backdrop to explore the different characters' lives and ambitions. Arnold's character adds an essential dynamic to the story, especially with his mentorship and influence over Jeff Bridges' character, Blake, who undergoes his own transformation throughout the film. Another standout feature of the film is the supporting cast. Jeff Bridges delivers a solid performance as the somewhat naive Blake, whose character serves as a foil to Arnold's more seasoned Joe. Sally Field, playing Blake's love interest, brings warmth and complexity to the role, making her a vital part of the storyline. In terms of Arnold's career, Stay Hungry represents an early attempt to branch out into acting, and while it wasn't a massive box office success, it did help set the stage for Arnold's future in Hollywood. The film's portrayal of bodybuilding, friendships, and the emotional struggles of the characters, combined with the comedic moments, makes it a unique film in Arnold's filmography. It's not your typical action-packed movie, but rather one that focuses more on character growth, relationships, and the human condition. The movie also plays with the theme of finding balance in life, much like Arnold's own balancing act between his bodybuilding career and his new foray into acting. It was a turning point for Arnold, showing that he wasn't just a muscle man, but someone with potential as a leading man in Hollywood films. The Villain, 1979, a retro review of comedy, Western, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's early career. The Villain, also known as Cactus Jack, is a 1979 Western comedy film that features a charming mix of slapstick humor, satire, and a bit of the Wild West flair, all wrapped up in an entertaining package. The movie stars Kirk Douglas as the bumbling villain Cactus Jack, and Margaret as the lovely but somewhat naive Charming Jones, and Arnold Schwarzenegger in one of his earliest roles as the handsome stranger. Directed by Hal Needham, The Villain is a film that combines comedic elements with the Western genre, which sets it apart from the typical gritty, dramatic westerns of the time. The plot. Set in the Wild West, the plot follows the story of Charming Jones, a beautiful woman who is about to inherit a fortune. To get his hands on her wealth, the evil but incompetent outlaw Cactus Jack, played by Kirk Douglas, is hired to capture her and steal her money. However, things take a wild turn when the handsome stranger, Arnold Schwarzenegger, a mysterious hero with a noble heart, shows up to save the day. The film plays with the classic Western tropes, but with an over-the-top comedic flair, as Cactus Jack continuously bungles his plans. And the handsome stranger takes an exaggeratedly heroic stance in trying to protect Charming. What makes the villain stand out is its blend of slapstick comedy and Western themes. The action sequences are not meant to be taken too seriously, and much of the film leans into physical humor and improbable situations. It's clear that the villain wasn't striving for high drama or realistic Western grit, but instead aimed for a lighthearted, fun experience that pokes fun at the genre. The characters. Kirk Douglas as Cactus Jack. Douglas's portrayal of the bumbling outlaw is a masterclass in slapstick comedy. While his character is meant to be a villain, his incompetence and lack of intelligence make him more of a comedic figure than a true threat. His endless misadventures in trying to capture Charming are the backbone of much of the humor in the film. Anne Margaret as Charming Jones. Anne Margaret is delightful as the damsel in distress, though she's not entirely helpless. Her character is clever and sweet, bringing an earnest charm to the movie that contrasts nicely with the chaotic antics around her. She plays the role with her trademark grace and comedic timing, offering a grounding presence amid the madness. Arnold's role as the heroic stranger is a fun departure from the action-heavy characters he would later become famous for. As a man of few words, the handsome stranger embodies a kind of silent, classic Western hero, but with a comedic twist. Schwarzenegger's trademark muscular physique, combined with his humorous approach to the role, adds a layer of both physicality and charm to the film. Themes and style. At its core, the villain is a satire of the Western genre, poking fun at the common cliches and tropes associated with cowboy films. The dynamic between Cactus Jack, Charming Jones, and the handsome stranger is a humorous play on the traditional bad guy versus good guy scenario, where the villain is more of a fool than a formidable adversary, and the hero is a walking punchline. The film relies on physical humor, visual gags, and clever dialogue, making it an enjoyable watch for fans of lighthearted westerns and comedic fare. The film's style reflects the 1970s trend of spoofing established genres. The villain doesn't try to take itself too seriously, and that's part of its charm. The slapstick comedy combined with Western elements like gunfights, horseback chases, and rugged landscapes give the film its nostalgic appeal. Arnold Schwarzenegger's early career. The villain is one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's early forays into film, following his breakthrough role in Conan the Barbarian, 1982, and his eventual rise to superstardom with The Terminator, 1984. At this stage in his career, Arnold was still relatively unknown to audiences, and his role as the handsome stranger demonstrates a lighter, more comedic side to the actor that fans would later come to appreciate in films like Twins, 1988, and Kindergarten Cop, 1990. Though this film is often overlooked when discussing Arnold's career, it's an interesting early entry in his filmography. It allows us to see his charm and charisma even before he became an action icon, and it highlights his ability to do comedy, something that would become a defining part of his later success. Comparing the villain to other films. While The Villain is often categorized as a Western comedy, its tone and humor can be compared to other films that blend slapstick and action in the 70s. Movies like Blazing Saddles, 1974, and Cat Ballou, 1965, also parody the Western genre, but with a sharper, more satirical edge. The Villain, on the other hand, is much lighter and family-friendly, with less biting social commentary and more emphasis on physical comedy. Kirk Douglas and Anne Margaret's performances. Kirk Douglas, with his well-established career, plays the role of Cactus Jack with typical gusto. His comic timing and willingness to embrace the absurdity of the role elevate the film's overall humor. Douglas's charm is evident, even when his character is causing chaos and getting into ridiculous situations. Anne Margaret, as mentioned, provides a perfect foil to the madness around her, offering both beauty and grace with a slight edge of comedic flair. She's often the voice of reason, even though she's caught in an absurd situation. Together with Douglas and Schwarzenegger, she helps anchor the movie's tone, making it both fun and watchable. Conclusion: The Villain is a delightful Western comedy that offers a quirky twist on the genre, featuring some memorable performances by Kirk Douglas, Anne Margaret, and a young Arnold Schwarzenegger. Though it doesn't have the same lasting impact as some of the classic Westerns or comedies of the time, it's a fun watch that allows viewers to see a different side of Arnold before he became the action superstar we know today. If you're a fan of early Arnold, classic comedies, or just enjoy a good Western spoof, The Villain is worth checking out for its lighthearted charm and goofy humor. Maggie, 2015, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, one of his most unusual and intimate roles. Let's dig into the plot, the characters, themes, Arnold's career evolution, and a few similar films. Intro and context. Maggie isn't your typical zombie movie, and it's certainly not your typical Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Released in 2015, this somber indie drama tells the story of a father struggling to care for his daughter as she slowly succumbs to a deadly virus, turning people into cannibalistic zombies. But forget the horde-chasing, bullet-blazing chaos of World War Z or 28 Days Later. Maggie is a slow-burn meditation on loss, mortality, and unconditional love. Think The Road with a viral twist. The story is simple but powerful. Set in a grim, near-future America ravaged by a virus called the necroambulist strain, the government has imposed strict quarantine protocols. Infected people are taken from their homes, placed in isolation wards, and ultimately euthanized when their condition worsens. We follow Wade Vogel, Arnold Schwarzenegger, a weathered farmer who retrieves his infected teenage daughter, Maggie, played by Abigail Breslin, from a city hospital after she's been bitten. Rather than turn her over to the authorities, he brings her home, determined to care for her during the remaining weeks she has left. As Maggie's condition deteriorates, her body showing signs of decay and her senses beginning to fade, Wade is forced to grapple with the inevitability of losing his child. The government keeps knocking, the townsfolk get nervous, and time is running out. But the movie never rushes. It sits in the ache of each moment, asking, what does it really mean to say goodbye to someone you love while they're still right in front of you? Wade Vogel, Arnold Schwarzenegger. This is easily one of Arnold's most subdued and grounded performances. No guns, no one-liners, just a man in emotional pain. Wade is stoic, protective, and deeply grieving, though he rarely speaks it aloud. His face, creased with sorrow and silent strength, tells us everything. For decades, Schwarzenegger was the face of unstoppable physical force, the Terminator, Commando, Predator. In Maggie, though, he plays a father who's powerless against biology. His performance is quiet, tender, and heartbreakingly human. It was a bold shift for him, and it works. Maggie isn't your typical zombie either. She's aware. She knows what's coming. We watch her grieve her own life while she's still living it, struggling to hang on to her identity as the virus takes over. Breslin brings an aching vulnerability to the role. There's one scene where she stares at herself in the mirror, seeing her eyes begin to change, and it's devastating. Her chemistry with Arnold feels genuine, like a real father-daughter bond. They share quiet moments on the porch, walks through the fields, and fleeting smiles that hit even harder knowing what's around the corner. Themes. 1. Slow grief and anticipatory loss. This film is all about grieving someone before they're gone. That tension of watching someone fade in slow motion is handled with grace and patience. It mirrors real-world experiences of degenerative illness or terminal conditions, making the film deeply relatable. 2. Parental love and sacrifice. Wade isn't trying to fix Maggie. He's simply trying to love her through the end. His presence, silent, steady, and fiercely loyal, is more powerful than any act of heroism. Shot 3. Humanity in the face of inhuman change. The transformation of Maggie into a zombie is metaphorical. It represents the horror of losing control over your body, your mind, your dignity. But the movie doesn't exploit it for gore. Instead, it emphasizes Maggie's dignity until the very end. 4. Isolation and fear of the other. The townspeople's fear of Maggie and the government's protocol create tension around autonomy, public health, and fear-based policies. It's eerily resonant, especially in a post-COVID world. Arnold's career evolution. Arnold's role in Maggie marked a turning point in his post-action star career. In the 1980s and 90s, he was a larger-than-life force. After serving as governor of California from 2003 to 2011, he returned to acting with The Last Stand, 2013, and Sabotage, 2014. Both gritty, but still rooted in the tough guy mold. Maggie broke that mold. It showed a vulnerable, emotionally present side of Arnold that fans and critics hadn't really seen before. It didn't make huge waves at the box office, but it earned respect and showed that he could do more than hold a gun or flex a bicep. Since then, he's done a mix of nostalgic returns, Terminator Dark Fate, lighthearted appearances, Killing Gunther, and more personal projects. But Maggie remains a standout for its quiet power. Similar movies. If you appreciated Maggie, here are a few other films with a similar tone or emotional weight. The Road, 2009, a post-apocalyptic father-son journey about survival and holding on to love. A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place, 2018, not just a horror film, but a story about protecting your children at all costs. Leave No Trace, 2018, a father and daughter living off the grid, dealing with trauma and quiet heartbreak. I Am Legend, 2007. While more action-heavy, it shares themes of isolation and grief in a ravaged world. Final thoughts. Maggie is a rare kind of film. It takes the zombie genre and strips away the spectacle to reveal something quiet, aching, and deeply human. It's not about the apocalypse. It's about a father trying to savor the last moments with his daughter before he loses her forever. Arnold's performance proves he's more than just a one-man army. In Maggie, he's a man facing something he can't punch or outrun, and somehow that makes him feel even stronger. If you're in the mood for something slow, soulful, and emotionally resonant, with a side of decay and dread, Maggie is worth your time. Just bring tissues.